Cop throws elderly black man into piranha tank, and what happens next is unbelievable. In a small town nestled along the Mississippi River, 68-year-old James River Jim Johnson never imagined that his lifelong knowledge of the waters would become his salvation on a night that would change his life forever. Before we continue this shocking story, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and leave a like. Comment below which city you're watching from. I want to get to know each one of you. It all started when Sergeant Miller, new to the area and known for his violent history, decided to teach a lesson to River Jim after an argument over fishing rights. What no one knew was that the officer harbored an even darker secret than his violent actions. On a full moon night, Miller lured River Jim to an abandoned research center, where experimental tanks still housed schools of piranhas. The officer's plan seemed perfect, an accident, with a drunk old man who fell into a tank. But River Jim was no ordinary man, and his ancestral knowledge of the Mississippi's waters hid secrets that even piranhas couldn't overcome. "You think you know the waters, old man? Let's see how long you last in my fish tank," were Sergeant Miller's last words before pushing River Jim. What happened in the next few minutes would leave the entire town in shock. The echo of screams mixed with the sound of agitated water, but they weren't the screams everyone expected to hear. In the darkness of that night, something extraordinary was about to happen. Something that would forever change the fate of these two men. But before revealing what happened in that tank, I need to tell you what led to this fateful moment. A story of power, prejudice, and an ancient wisdom passed down through generations along the banks of the great river. Did Sergeant Miller truly understand the power of the Mississippi waters? Or did his prejudice blind him to something much greater than he could imagine? What happened that night at the research center would change not only River Jim's life, but would reveal a truth that had been submerged for decades in that small riverside town. The town of Riversend, perched on the banks of the Mississippi, was a place where time seemed to flow at the river's pace. Colorful houses dotted the shoreline, while fishing boats gently rocked at their moorings. The fish market, the beating heart of the community, exuded characteristic aromas that attracted both locals and the rare tourists who ventured there. James Johnson, known to all as River Jim, was a legendary figure in these parts. His brown eyes, marked by time, hid stories few knew. The son of a lineage of African-American fishermen whose roots in the area predated the Civil War, Jim carried with him not just fishing techniques, but also the mystical secrets of the waters, passed down through generations. His daily routine began before sunrise. With calloused hands, he prepared his small vessel, a hand-carved cedar wood boat inherited from his father. The nets, carefully mended, were his livelihood and his connection to the river he loved so dearly. On the other hand, Sergeant Tom Miller was the antithesis of everything the community represented. Recently transferred from Chicago after a series of controversial incidents, Miller brought with him not just his badge, but also a deep disdain for riverside life, and especially for the local inhabitants. Tall, with muscles defined by hours at the gym rather than honest work, Miller exuded an aura of arrogance. His green eyes, cold as the deep waters of the Mississippi, rarely showed emotion, except when they gleamed with sadistic pleasure while exercising his authority. The tension between Miller and the community was palpable from his arrival. Small incidents accumulated. Fishermen unjustly fined, young people intimidated on the streets, shopkeepers pressured for bribes. But it was his encounter with River Jim that ignited the spark that would lead to the fateful confrontation. It all began on a hot Saturday afternoon. The market was buzzing with typical weekend activity. River Jim was at his stall, proudly displaying the results of his morning catch. Miller, on his rounds, stopped in front of the stall, his eyes fixed on the exposed fish. Fishing license, Miller demanded, his voice sharp as a razor. River Jim calmly extended the papers, worn by time and humidity. Miller examined them, his face contorting into a sneer of contempt. "This is expired, old man. I'll have to confiscate all this fish." The crowd around them fell silent. Everyone knew that River Jim's license was lifetime, a recognition of decades of service to the community. The old fisherman with dignity tried to explain. "With all due respect, Sergeant, this license doesn't expire. It was a gift from—" "Are you calling me a liar?" Miller interrupted, his hand already on the butt of his gun. It was at this moment that Sarah, River Jim's granddaughter and a law student at the State University, intervened. At 22, she was the pride of the family and the hope of the community. "Sergeant, there's a misunderstanding here. This is a special license, recognized by the state government. If you'd like, I can show you the legislation that—" "Shut up, girl. I don't need some smart aleck telling me how to do my job." The tension was palpable. Other fishermen began to approach, forming a protective circle around River Jim and Sarah. Miller, realizing he was outnumbered, backed off, but not without issuing a veiled threat. "This isn't over, old man. You and your smart-mouthed granddaughter are going to learn to respect authority." As Miller walked away, worried glances turned to River Jim. The old fisherman, however, maintained a surprising calm. His eyes, fixed on the distant waters of the river, seemed to see beyond the present moment. "The river teaches us, my child," he said softly to Sarah, "that even the strongest currents find their balance. But be careful, for sometimes balance comes in ways we don't expect." Little did Miller know that his actions that day had set in motion forces he couldn't comprehend. Ancient forces as deep as the Mississippi itself that would soon manifest in ways no one could predict. In the weeks following the incident at the market, a palpable tension hung over River's End. Sergeant Miller intensified his intimidation campaign, focusing especially on local fishermen and, above all, on River Jim and his family. Sarah, determined to protect her grandfather and the community, began meticulously documenting each abuse of power. Nights were spent poring over law books, seeking legal ways to confront Miller. Her constant presence at the police station, demanding explanations and filing formal complaints, only served to increase the sergeant's ire. One day, Miller showed up at River Jim's house with a false summons, alleging irregularities in his boat's documentation. The old fisherman, knowing his rights, refused to hand over the vessel that was his livelihood. "This boat is my life, Sergeant. It was made by my father's hands and mine. There's no irregularity here," River Jim calmly stated, his eyes fixed on Miller's. The sergeant, frustrated by the old man's peaceful resistance, lost control. In a sudden movement, he shoved River Jim, who fell, hitting his head on a rock. The sound of the impact echoed along the riverbank, drawing the attention of neighbors. Sarah, arriving at that moment, ran to help her grandfather. "Are you crazy?" she shouted at Miller, while helping River Jim to his feet. "This is abuse of authority. You can't do this." Miller, realizing the gravity of his actions and the presence of witnesses, backed off, but not without issuing another veiled threat. "This isn't over, old man. You and your lawyer granddaughter are going to learn not to mess with the wrong people." The incident spread quickly through the town. The community, already tired of Miller's actions, began to mobilize. Secret meetings were held at the fish market. Plans were drawn up to protect River Jim and expose the sergeant's actions. Meanwhile, Miller, feeling the pressure mount, became even more dangerous. He began investigating River Jim's past, seeking any information he could use against the old fisherman. It was during these investigations that he discovered something intriguing: rumors about ancient rituals performed by River Jim and his ancestors, rituals that supposedly gave them power over the waters and their inhabitants. Obsessed, Miller began following River Jim during his night fishing trips, observing from afar the old man's mysterious practices. He saw River Jim talking to the waters, making offerings to the river, and performing strange gestures that seemed to calm even the most turbulent parts of the Mississippi. One night, Miller confronted River Jim in an isolated part of the river. "What kind of witchcraft are you doing, old man? You think you can fool everyone with these tricks?" River Jim, maintaining his characteristic calm, replied, "It's not witchcraft, Sergeant. It's respect. Respect for the river, for nature, for life. Something you seem to have forgotten." River Jim's words hit Miller like a punch. For a brief moment, a shadow of doubt passed across the sergeant's face. But his pride and prejudice quickly smothered any internal questioning. "Enough talk. You're coming with me now. I'm going to end this charade once and for all," Miller said, drawing his weapon. At this moment, something extraordinary happened. The waters of the river, until then calm, began to churn violently. Fish leaped from the water, creating a surreal spectacle. Miller, frightened, backed away, almost losing his balance. River Jim remained motionless, his eyes closed, as if in deep communion with the river. When he opened them, there was an intensity in his gaze that Miller had never seen before. "The river is restless, Sergeant. It senses injustice, violence. Be careful of the path you choose. The waters have a long memory, and they are not always merciful." Miller, wavering between fear and anger, grabbed River Jim by the arm. "Enough talk. You're going to show me exactly what's going on here, or I swear I'll end you." It was at this moment that Miller had an idea. The old research center, abandoned years ago, still maintained experimental tanks, among them one notorious for its studies with piranhas. If he could force the old man to reveal his secrets there, away from prying eyes. Dragging River Jim to his patrol car, Miller set off towards the research center, determined to uncover the truth behind the old fisherman's powers, unaware that he was about to unleash events that would forever change the fate of Riversend. As Miller drove River Jim to the abandoned research center, a series of events unfolded in Riversend, adding new layers to the tense situation. Sarah, worried about her grandfather's sudden disappearance, began mobilizing the community. She contacted Michael, a young local journalist who had been secretly documenting Miller's abuses. Michael, who harbored feelings for Sarah, saw in this situation not just a chance to expose corruption, but also an opportunity to get closer to her. "We need to act fast," said Michael, his eyes reflecting the urgency of the moment. "I have enough evidence to incriminate Miller, but we need to find your grandfather before it's too late." Meanwhile, at the police station, Deputy Johnson, Miller's subordinate, was struggling with his conscience. For months he had witnessed the sergeant's abuses, but fear of retaliation kept him silent. Now, with the disappearance of a respected citizen like River Jim, he felt he could no longer stay quiet. In a courageous decision, Johnson decided to seek out Sarah. "I know where the sergeant might have taken your grandfather," he revealed, his voice trembling with nervousness. "There's an old research center that Miller mentioned a few times. It's isolated, perfect for doing something without witnesses." At the same time, at the research center, the situation was intensifying. Miller, increasingly unstable, forced River Jim to walk among the abandoned tanks, some still full of murky water. "You're going to show me these tricks of yours now, old man," Miller demanded, his voice echoing off the concrete walls, "or we'll see if you can communicate with the piranhas in this tank here." River Jim, maintaining a surprising calm, stared fixedly at the dark waters. "Sergeant, you're playing with forces you don't understand. There's still time to reconsider your actions." The tension was palpable, the air heavy with humidity and the smell of decay. It was at this moment that a new element entered the scene. Dr. Eleanor Green, a respected scientist in the community and former research partner at the center, had followed Miller and River Jim there. Hidden in the shadows, she observed the scene with eyes sharpened by age and experience. Eleanor knew the secrets of this place better than anyone. Decades ago, she had participated in controversial experiments that sought to understand the incredible healing capacity of certain fish species. These studies, abruptly interrupted, had left behind more than just abandoned tanks. They had created something unique, something that could change the course of events on this fateful night. Meanwhile, in town, the search for River Jim was gaining momentum. Sarah, Michael, and a group of fishermen were preparing to head towards the research center. Time was against them, and the fear of what they might find weighed heavily on their hearts. Back at the center, Miller, frustrated with River Jim's silent resistance, made a drastic decision. Pointing his gun at the old fisherman, he forced him to approach one of the largest tanks. "Last chance, old man. Show me these powers of yours, or you're going to swim with the piranhas." It was at this moment that Dr. Green decided to reveal her presence. Stepping out of the shadows, her voice echoed through the cavernous space. "Miller, you have no idea what you're about to unleash." Surprised by the intrusion, Miller turned abruptly, his gun now pointed at Eleanor. "Who the hell are you? How did you get in here?" Eleanor, undaunted, took a step forward. "I'm someone who knows the true secrets of this place, and I can assure you, young man, that the power you're looking for isn't in River Jim, it's in the waters themselves." Eleanor's revelation added a new layer of mystery and tension to the already volatile situation. Miller, torn between curiosity and anger, didn't notice that River Jim had moved even closer to the main tank. The old fisherman, with a look of understanding exchanged with Eleanor, knew that the crucial moment had arrived. The waters in the tank began to stir, as if responding to a silent call. The night was about to take a turn that no one could have predicted, with ancestral forces and long-buried secrets rising to the surface. The abandoned research center became the stage for a confrontation that transcended the clash between a corrupt policeman and an old fisherman. The damp walls seemed to pulse with an ancient energy, while the air grew increasingly dense. Miller, his nerves on edge, kept his gun pointed, alternating between River Jim and Dr. Eleanor Green. "What's this story about power in the waters? Are you trying to drive me crazy?" Eleanor took a step forward, her eyes shining with ancestral wisdom. "Decades ago, we conducted experiments here that went beyond common scientific understanding. We discovered that certain fish species in this region possess unique properties capable of healing and transformation." River Jim, still at the edge of the main tank, added, "These aren't tricks, Sergeant. It's knowledge passed down through generations, the communion between man and nature." At this moment, a noise from the entrance of the center caught everyone's attention. Sarah, Michael, and a group of townspeople had arrived, led by Deputy Johnson. "Freeze, Sergeant!" shouted Johnson, his voice echoing through the space. "It's all over. We have evidence of your crimes." Miller, cornered and desperate, grabbed River Jim, using him as a shield. "Nobody moves, or the old man dies right here." It was at this critical instant that the true power of the waters revealed itself. The main tank, until then apparently inert, began to bubble violently. A bluish glow emanated from the depths, illuminating the place with an ethereal light. Taking advantage of Miller's momentary distraction, River Jim freed himself with surprising agility for his age. In a fluid motion, he dove into the tank, disappearing beneath the agitated surface. "No!" shouted Sarah, running towards the tank, fearing the worst. Miller, in a final act of desperation, pointed his gun at the water, ready to fire. But before he could pull the trigger, something extraordinary happened. The water in the tank rose like a living column, enveloping Miller. The sergeant screamed, more from surprise than pain, as he was lifted off the ground. Everyone present watched the scene, paralyzed by astonishment. Inside the water column, Miller flailed, his eyes wide with terror. Through the crystalline liquid, it was possible to see dozens of fish swimming around him, but strangely, they didn't attack. Instead, they seemed to dance in a hypnotic choreography. Dr. Eleanor Green, observing everything with a mixture of admiration and fear, explained, The experiments we conducted here weren't just about the healing properties of the fish. We discovered that under specific conditions, these fish can become conductors of a powerful vital energy. Meanwhile, to everyone's amazement, River Jim emerged from the tank, completely unharmed. His body emanated a slight bluish glow, and his eyes reflected millennial wisdom. "The river judges those who challenge it," said River Jim, his voice resonating with supernatural authority, "but it also offers redemption to those who seek to understand it." Miller, still suspended in the water column, began to undergo a visible transformation. His expression of terror gradually transformed into one of deep understanding. The hard lines of his face softened, and a light of recognition shone in his eyes. Slowly, the water column lowered, gently depositing Miller on the ground. When he stood up, he was a changed man. Tears streamed down his face as he looked at his hands, as if seeing them for the first time. I understand now," Miller murmured, his voice choked with emotion. "All the evil I've done, all the pain I've caused, I feel it all. I feel the connection to everything." Sarah, still stunned by the events, approached cautiously. "What happened to him?" River Jim, placing a comforting hand on his granddaughter's shoulder, explained, "The waters purified him, showed him the interconnection of all things. Miller experienced in minutes what our people take a lifetime to learn." Deputy Johnson, recovering from the shock, stepped forward to arrest Miller, but the ex-sergeant offered no resistance. On the contrary, he extended his arms, ready to accept the consequences of his actions. "I surrender," said Miller, a strange peace in his voice. "I'm ready to pay for my crimes and do whatever it takes to right my wrongs." As Miller was led away, Dr. Green approached River Jim. "You knew this would happen, didn't you? You brought him here on purpose." River Jim nodded softly. "The river showed me the way. Sometimes, to heal a wound, you need to expose it first." The news of the events at the research center spread quickly through River's End. The community, once divided by fear and mistrust, now united in awe and reverence for the healing and transformative power that resided in their waters. This event marked not only the end of Miller's reign of terror, but also the beginning of a new era for the town. An era of renewal, respect for nature, and reconnection with ancient wisdom. In the days following the events at the research center, Riversend experienced a mix of commotion, reflection, and transformation. News of the incident spread rapidly, not just through the town, but across the entire Mississippi region, attracting the attention of journalists, researchers, and curious onlookers. The first and most immediate consequence was Miller's arrest. Conducted peacefully by Deputy Johnson, the ex-sergeant was taken to the state capitol, where he would face trial for his crimes. Surprisingly, Miller maintained the serenity acquired after his experience in the tank, fully cooperating with the investigations and expressing deep remorse for his past actions. For Sarah, the experience was transformative on multiple levels. Besides having her grandfather back safe and sound, she found herself at the center of an unprecedented legal and ethical battle. As a law student, she now faced complex questions about justice, rehabilitation, and the role of nature in modern society. "We can't simply ignore what happened," Sarah argued in a meeting with community leaders. "We have a responsibility to protect this knowledge, but also to share it responsibly with the world." Michael, the young journalist, found himself with the story of a lifetime. His article detailing the events at the research center went viral, attracting attention from major national and international media outlets. He now struggled to balance exposing the truth with protecting the community and its secrets. "It's a fine line between informing the public and preserving something sacred," Michael confided to Sarah during one of their long nighttime conversations by the river. The Riversend community in turn experienced a profound change. The fear and mistrust that had dominated during Miller's regime gave way to a renewed sense of unity and purpose. Fishermen, who had once fiercely competed for territories, now shared knowledge and resources, inspired by River Jim's wisdom and the healing power of the waters. Dr. Eleanor Green emerged as a central figure in this new dynamic. Her scientific knowledge, combined with respect for traditional wisdom, made her a crucial bridge between the old and the new. She initiated a study program that attracted researchers from around the world, focused on understanding and preserving the secrets of the Mississippi waters. What we witnessed is not just a local phenomenon, Eleanor explained in a lecture to the community. It's a call for us to re-evaluate our relationship with nature and with each other. River Jim himself, though reluctant to assume a leadership role, became a living symbol of harmony between man and nature. Young people from the community, once eager to leave riverside life behind, now sought his teachings, anxious to understand the secrets he guarded. The river teaches us that everything is connected, River Jim often told the young people who sought him out. What we do to it, we do to ourselves. However, not all consequences were positive. The sudden attention brought unexpected challenges. Pharmaceutical and biotechnology companies began pressuring for access to the waters and the fish, envisioning astronomical profits from potential revolutionary medicines and treatments. The Riversend City Council found itself at the center of a legal and ethical battle, struggling to protect the town's natural resources while navigating tempting offers of economic development. "We can't sell our soul," the mayor declared in a tense city council meeting, "but we also can't deny the world the benefits of this discovery." As the weeks passed, it became clear that the events at the research center had triggered changes that went far beyond the borders of Riversend. It was the beginning of a new era where ancient wisdom and modern science intertwined, promising new paths for healing, not just of bodies, but of entire communities. At the center of it all, River Jim continued his daily fishing routine, an enigmatic smile on his wrinkled face, as if he knew that the true waves of change were yet to come. In the months that followed, Riversend became an epicenter of transformation and growth, not just for the local community, but for all those involved in the extraordinary events at the research center. Sarah, driven by her experience, decided to specialize in environmental and indigenous peoples' rights law. She began dividing her time between studies in the state capital and work in Riversend, where she led initiatives to legally protect the community's knowledge and resources. "We cannot allow our heritage to be exploited or misused," Sarah argued in public hearings and meetings with authorities. Her personal and professional growth was evident, and she quickly became a respected voice, not just in the region, but in broader academic and political circles. Michael, the journalist, faced his own ethical and professional challenges. Initially tempted by the fame his story brought, he soon realized the responsibility he carried. He decided to refuse lucrative offers from major media outlets, opting instead to found a local newspaper focused on investigative journalism and environmental issues. "Our story needs to be told by us," Michael said at a community meeting. "We can't let others control our narrative." His commitment to truth and community not only strengthened his character, but also inspired a new generation of young people to engage with local issues. Deputy Johnson, now promoted to sheriff after Miller's departure, led a complete reform of the local police force. He implemented training programs focused on human rights and respect for local traditions, transforming the police force from a source of fear to one of protection and community support. "Our duty is to serve and protect, not dominate," Johnson often reminded his team. His growth as a leader and his dedication to justice brought a new era of trust between the police and the community. Dr. Eleanor Green, in turn, emerged as a central figure in integrating traditional knowledge and scientific research. She established a study center that attracted researchers from around the world, focused on alternative medicine and ecology. Her work not only validated the ancestral practices of the region, but also opened new frontiers in understanding Mississippi's biodiversity. Each day is a new discovery, Eleanor enthusiastically shared in her lectures. We're just scratching the surface of what nature has to teach us. Her tireless commitment inspired both young and old to value and preserve traditional knowledge. River Jim, although reluctant to assume a formal leadership role, became a mentor and spiritual guide for many. He began teaching ancient practices of communion with the river, not just to locals, but also to visitors who came from afar seeking wisdom. The river doesn't judge, it accepts, River Jim often said. Our challenge is to learn to flow with it, not against it. His patience and wisdom became a beacon for those seeking a path of harmony with nature. The most surprising transformation, however, came from an unexpected source. Ex-Sergeant Miller. After serving part of his sentence, Miller was allowed to participate in an innovative rehabilitation program in Riversend. Under the guidance of River Jim and Dr. Green, he began working on conservation and environmental education projects. Each day is a struggle to be better than I was yesterday, Miller shared in a community therapy session. But each day is also an opportunity to repair the harm I caused. His journey of redemption, though difficult, became a powerful example of transformation and forgiveness. The community as a whole experienced a cultural and economic renaissance. Sustainable fishing and farming practices were revitalized, combining traditional methods with modern technologies. Responsible ecotourism flourished, bringing visitors interested not just in natural beauty, but also in local wisdom. We're building a bridge between the past and the future, the mayor declared in an emotional speech during the inauguration of a new cultural center. A bridge that others can follow. As Riversend transformed, its story spread, inspiring other communities along the Mississippi and beyond. The town became a model of how respect for nature and ancestral traditions could coexist with progress and sustainable development. At the center of all this transformation, the waters of the river continued to flow, carrying with them the secrets of healing and renewal. And on the banks, River Jim watched with a serene smile, knowing that the true miracle wasn't in the waters themselves, but in people's ability to reconnect with nature and with each other. As Riversend flourished as a beacon of harmony between tradition and progress, new challenges emerged on the horizon. The town's fame and its secrets attracted the attention of powerful forces, determined to exploit the potential of the miraculous waters at any cost. One tense morning, Sarah called an emergency meeting. Her usually serene face was marked with concern. I've received information that a multinational corporation is planning an operation to extract samples of our waters and fish. They want to patent what they're calling a miracle compound. The news fell like a bomb among the community leaders. Michael, now editor-in-chief of the local newspaper, frowned. If they succeed, they could control and commercially exploit our natural resources. Dr. Green, her eyes shining with determination, added, "It's not just a matter of resources. It's about ancestral knowledge, about the sacred connection between people and the river. We can't allow this to be reduced to a commodity." Sheriff Johnson, who had become a strong ally of the community, offered a grim perspective. "My contacts have informed me that they won't hesitate to use illegal means. They might try to bribe officials or even use force." The tension in the room was palpable. Years of hard work and community growth were threatened. It was at this moment that River Jim, who had remained silent, finally spoke. His voice, though soft, carried the weight of generations of wisdom. "The river has taught us that true strength lies not in resistance, but in adaptation. We cannot fight this threat the same way they would fight. We must be like water, flow around obstacles, find new paths. His words prompted a moment of deep reflection. Sarah was the first to break the silence. What if, instead of just defending ourselves, we invited the world to understand our perspective? The idea caught fire quickly. Michael suggested a global media campaign to tell the true story of Riversend. Dr. Green proposed an international symposium of scientists and indigenous leaders to discuss the importance of preserving traditional knowledge. Ex-Sergeant Miller, now a respected member of the community, offered a unique perspective. I know the mindset of those who only see profit. We can use that to our advantage, show how preservation can be more valuable than exploitation. As the group discussed strategies, a palpable energy of determination filled the air. They knew they were preparing not just to protect their town, but to defend a way of life and a sacred connection with nature. In the days that followed, Riversend transformed into a hive of activity. Sarah worked tirelessly, preparing legal documents and contacting allies around the world. Michael and his team of journalists produced powerful reports, revealing the beauty and importance of traditional knowledge. Dr. Green led a series of workshops, teaching young people in the community the ancient practices of healing and conservation. "You are the guardians of the future," she told her enthusiastic students. "It's crucial that this knowledge is passed on." Sheriff Johnson coordinated efforts with state and federal authorities, ensuring legal and physical protection for the community. His dedication was a testament to how the town had transformed even those who once threatened it. At the center of all this activity, River Jim remained a calm and constant presence. Every morning, he still went out fishing, his canoe gliding silently over the river waters. Many in town sought his guidance, finding in his simple words the wisdom needed to face the challenges ahead. As the day of confrontation approached, an atmosphere of tension and expectation hung over Riversend. The community knew it was about to face its greatest challenge yet. But there was also a sense of unity and shared purpose they had never experienced before. On the eve of the big day, as the sun set over the Mississippi, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, River Jim watched the town from the riverbank. His eyes, full of a mixture of concern and hope, reflected the waters that had shaped so many lives. He knew that the true test of everything they had built was about to begin. The day dawned with a palpable tension in Riversend. The sky, usually clear, was covered by low clouds, as if nature itself reflected the gravity of the moment. The streets, typically full of life and bustle, were strangely quiet, with residents gathered in small groups, exchanging worried glances. In the town center, a convoy of luxury vehicles arrived, bringing executives from the multinational corporation and a team of lawyers. Led by a man in an impeccable suit and cold gaze, they headed for the town hall, where a decisive meeting was about to take place. Inside the building, Sarah, Michael, Dr. Green, Sheriff Johnson, and the mayor waited, united in their determination to protect Riversend's legacy. River Jim, at everyone's request, was also present, his serene presence contrasting with the tense atmosphere. The corporation's leader, introducing himself as Dr. Almeida, initiated the meeting with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're here to discuss a proposal that will bring unprecedented prosperity to your charming town." Sarah, prepared for this moment, immediately counterattacked. "Dr. Almeida, we're aware of your true intentions. We have evidence of your plans to illegally exploit our waters and natural resources." Almeida's smile faltered for a moment, but he quickly recovered. "Miss Sarah, I'm afraid there's a misunderstanding. Our intention is to establish a beneficial partnership for all." It was at this moment that Michael intervened, presenting a series of documents and recordings. "These are proofs of your bribery attempts and plans for illegal operations. We're prepared to make everything public if necessary." The atmosphere in the room changed drastically. The corporation's lawyers began whispering furiously, while Almeida struggled to maintain his composure. Seizing the moment, Dr. Green took the floor. What you see as a resource to be exploited is in fact sacred knowledge, intertwined with the very existence of our community and the Mississippi ecosystem. Sheriff Johnson added, "Moreover, we have the full support of state and federal authorities. Any illegal action will be immediately suppressed." Almeida, seeing his position weakened, decided to change tactics. His tone became threatening. "You don't understand the forces you're dealing with. We have resources to make life very difficult for everyone here. Perhaps some unfortunate accidents could happen." It was at this critical moment that River Jim, who had remained silent until then, slowly stood up. All eyes turned to him, including Almeida's, who seemed intrigued by this old fisherman. "Sir," River Jim began, his voice calm but powerful, "you speak of forces, but you don't understand the true force that resides here. It's not in documents or threats, but in the connection between people and the river." With a gesture, River Jim invited everyone to approach the windows. Outside, to everyone's amazement, especially the visitors, an extraordinary scene was unfolding. Hundreds of River's End residents had silently gathered around the town hall. Fishermen, children, elders, all united, forming a protective circle. But the most impressive thing was what was happening on the river. The waters, usually calm at that time of year, were churning violently. Schools of fish, including the famous piranhas, swam in circular formations, creating hypnotic patterns on the surface. Pink river dolphins, rarely seen in groups, emerged, their sounds echoing like a mysterious chorus. "Look," River Jim continued, "the river and its children respond. They sense injustice, violence. Be careful of the path you choose. The waters have a long memory, and they are not always merciful." The scene left everyone speechless. Almeida, in particular, seemed deeply shaken. His face, once marked by arrogance, now showed a mixture of fear and awe. Sarah, sensing the change, seized the moment. "Dr. Almeida, we're not here to be your enemies. We're offering something much more valuable than any patent or immediate profit. We offer partnership, knowledge, and the chance to be part of something truly revolutionary." The mayor, who had remained silent until then, finally spoke. "Imagine the potential for ethical research, for sustainable development. River's End can be a model for the world, and your company can be at the forefront of this." A deep silence fell over the room. Almeida looked again at the window, at the surreal scene unfolding outside. Then, to everyone's surprise, he turned to River Jim. "In all my years, I've never seen anything like this," said Almeida, his voice trembling. Perhaps we have something to learn here." Moo. With these words, the tension in the room dissipated. What followed were hours of discussion, no longer about exploitation, but about cooperation, ethical research, and preservation. At the end of the day, when Almeida and his team departed, it wasn't with exploitation contracts, but with the beginning of a revolutionary partnership agreement. River's End had not only averted a threat, but opened a new chapter in its history. As the sun set, bathing the town in golden hues, River Jim smiled, watching the river waters return to their usual calm. The battle had been won, not with force, but with wisdom, unity, and the incredible connection between people and nature. In the weeks and months following the decisive confrontation, River's End experienced a remarkable transformation. The partnership agreement with the corporation, now reformulated under ethical and sustainable principles, opened doors to a future that no one could have predicted. Sarah, recognized for her negotiation skills and deep legal knowledge, was invited to lead an international committee on environmental and indigenous rights. Her work began to influence global policies, ensuring that traditional communities worldwide had a voice and protection. Our challenge now is to balance progress with preservation, Sarah declared at a UN conference. Riversend has shown that this is not only possible, but essential for the future of our planet. Michael in turn saw his local newspaper grow and become a reference in environmental journalism. Reporters from around the world came to Riversend to learn about responsible coverage of ecological and community issues. The true story is never simple, Michael often told young journalists. It's in the voices of the community, in the wisdom of the elders, in the whispers of the river. Dr. Green, in partnership with international scientists, established a cutting-edge research center focused on traditional medicine and ecology. Her discoveries began to revolutionize medical treatments, always with a deep respect for ancestral practices. Every plant, every animal, every drop of water has a story to tell, Green taught. Our task is to learn to listen. Sheriff Johnson, now police chief, implemented a community policing program that became a model for other cities. Trust between the police force and citizens reached unprecedented levels. Protect and serve takes on a new meaning when you understand the deep connection between people and their environment, Johnson reflected. Even Dr. Almeida, the once relentless executive, underwent a personal transformation. He became a fervent advocate for ethical and sustainable business practices, often citing his experience in Riversend as a turning point in his life. The town itself flourished. Responsible ecotourism brought visitors from around the world, eager to learn about the balance between tradition and progress. Local schools incorporated traditional knowledge into their curricula, creating a generation of young people deeply connected to their heritage and environment. At the center of it all, River Jim continued his simple life as a fisherman. Although now sought after by world leaders and renowned scientists, he maintained his daily routine, going out to fish at dawn, his canoe gliding silently over the Mississippi waters. On a quiet afternoon, while watching the sunset with Sarah by his side, River Jim reflected, "See, my granddaughter, how the river continues to flow no matter what happens. It teaches us that change is constant, but also that there is continuity in all things." Sarah, smiling, replied, "And it reminds us that we're all part of something bigger, doesn't it, Grandpa?" River Jim nodded, his eyes shining with the wisdom of generations. "Yes, child, the river, the fish, us, we are all one, and as long as we remember that, there will be hope for the future." Toruriu. As stars began to dot the Mississippi sky, Riversend rested in peace, a beacon of harmony between man and nature, a living testament to the power of ancestral wisdom and the strength of a united community. 5 years after the events that transformed Riversend, the town had become a global symbol of harmony between development and preservation. Tourists and researchers from around the world arrived daily, eager to witness the Mississippi miracle. On a sunny morning, a young reporter found River Jim by the riverbank. "Did you ever imagine your town would become so famous?" she asked. River Jim smiled, his eyes reflecting the wisdom of the waters. "The river always knew our potential, child. It just waited for us to discover it too." As the old fisherman cast his net, the reporter realized that some stories, like rivers, never truly end. They just keep flowing, shaping the world as they pass. Dear viewers, if you followed this incredible journey to the end, leave in the comments, "I watched it all the way through." Your presence and engagement are what bring these stories to life. The saga of Riversend reminds us that each of us has the power to make a difference in our communities. How about reflecting on how we can apply these lessons in our own lives? Don't forget to share this video with friends and family. Together, we can spread messages of hope and transformation. And please, click on the video that will appear on the end screen. There you'll find more inspiring stories that will surely touch your heart. Until next time, and remember, like the river, our journey continues.